So today on the Late Flight Show, we're going to do something a little bit different. In a new series I like to call Film Directors I Love, we're going to talk about film directors that really made an impact on my acting style and what I ever thought would be possible in the world of acting. And as such, of course, I have to have my prop and be in a very film noir setting where my shadows are falling down on my face. And as we know, in any film noir movie, there's always that Humphrey Bogart-esque detective who has a lot to say. As do I. So strap in your seatbelts for this edition of Film Directors I Love, Lars von Trier on the Late Flight Show. So Lars von Trier. I love Lars von Trier, and I am 1 degree separated from Lars von Trier because a couple of years ago I sent an email working on this project. I sent an email to his assistant. I found his management company and I sent an email to his assistant, and the assistant got back to me and said, "Oh, Mr. Von Trier is busy right now. Good luck." Good luck with your life. Oh, I'm supposed to use the Maltese Falcon voice. So, I sent an email to Lars von Trier's assistant. And, I waited. I waited for weeks. I didn't think I'd hear back from them. I'd even given up checking my messages, and then suddenly one day, I was waiting for an email from a friend. A wonderful girl, the bubbly kind, with the fine attitude and a fine body. You know the type. Always ends up with the bad boy. Anyway, while I'm waiting for a message to come through, I see Lars von Trier's assistant responded to my email. I paused. There was a bead of sweat running down my brow, and I opened the email. And what did I see? I saw a response, and Lars von Trier was busy. But I was grateful that they had gotten back to me. So not only is Lars von Trier one of my favorite directors, but he's a swell fella too, for hiring good people and keeping his brand intact. No, seriously, and see. But seriously, now I've got Humphrey Bogart on the mind. Luckily, I've got the lisp too. But seriously, Lars von Trier, I think the first movie of his that I saw, it could have been, I want to say, I could be wrong, but right now on the Late Flight Show, I know the most impactful, I'll say that, was definitely Dogville. Dogville was what reinforced my acting, because the movie is a celebration and a worshipping of acting. The whole movie is filmed on a soundstage. There are no sets. There are no buildings. There is set design, but there are no buildings. There are no flats on the soundstage. It's a blank, black. Oh, mosquito! It's a blank stage, and it's they have the rooms where all the actors are supposed to go, their marks drawn with white chalk, and they have a narrator going over the scenes and the chapters of the movie. And my English class in high school, after being bullied and killed, because I was bullied to the point of death, and when I came back, I was obviously more fierce and protective of myself, and I had to do a lot of things to protect myself, which weren't things that I would normally do as a person. So that's where the violation really comes in when people abuse you. It's because they make you act in ways that you wouldn't normally act in order to protect yourself. And it's similar to Naomi Campbell. I was watching an interview, a couple of interviews with her, and people were saying she was violent, but you can see she's not. If you know acting and you know human emotion, you can see she's not a violent person. But something happened where she has to be a certain way in order. It's unfortunate, but that's what happens when you get abused. You learn, and your body learns, that in order to not die, and some people don't make it, but in order to not die, you have to do certain things to protect yourself, and that can get blood on your hands, and that can sometimes, if you're a person who wouldn't normally do that, that can warp your reality. If you were raised in a nice household, you were happy, everything was great, and then you were exposed to that kind of abuse, it can warp your reality and teach you nasty things. So when I watched Dogville, it was at a time we had an essay project for our English class. And we used to do a lot of film theory in our English class. We'd have to do a lot of film exercises. We'd have to analyze movies and shots that directors use, movies with sound, without sound, how sound can affect a movie. Um, we did a lot of movie study in English class. And we had to go on assignment to cinemas and watch movies and take notes and write an essay, and books that were adapted into movies. So anyway, we had to write an essay on 3 movies. And funnily enough, I chose all Nicole Kidman movies. And my teacher was like, "Oh, geez, are you a fan of Nicole Kidman?" And I didn't realize it because they were. I guess I am, yeah. Um, but I didn't get it, and that's a whole nother episode on why she's an amazing actress, and why she makes good choices. Um, because she had acted in Dogville, and I'd watched the movie as part of this essay project um, that we had to do, and the movie was so cathartic. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm Nicole Kidman in this movie. I went to this place in the movie. She goes to Dogville. I go to a place that sounds like it could be Dogville, which is so weird. This is the healing power of acting, you guys, and this is why our job is so important and why we've been chosen to do this work. So in the movie, she goes to Dogville to escape because she comes from this lovely life and she wants to see the other side of life. So she goes to Dogville. I, same, was in a nice life, and then I went to that place, that high school, that sounds like Dogville, that it could be something like that. And the people there were bloody crazy. Like, there's no way to put it. Like, the things they did to Nicole Kidman in that movie, I get it. I love it, and I get it. And Lars von Trier is like a genius for creating such a masterpiece of acting, and everyone in there. Lauren Bacall is amazing as Margoose in there. The Sarsgaard guy, the Skarsgård, what is it, Peter? Oh, there's so many of them these days. He was literally like, he looked like the bully that I had that literally tormented me, the same way he tormented Nicole Kidman. And then, in the spoiler alert, at the end of the movie, the father comes back to save her, and that's the reveal that she's actually this privileged girl who ran away, and they came looking for her, and they found her, and the father comes, and the father's like a big time gangster, like the father you wish you had. Um, and he comes, and Nicole Kidman is like, you know what, it's okay, just let it be, take me away from these awful people, I'm done. And that's where I was at for 4 years of eating in the toilet, my lunch. Because if I go outside, I'm going to get accosted. For 4 years of it, I was also like, look, I'll just get through the last year. It's fine. Don't do anything. Just don't upset the apple cart. Just let it be. That's how it is. You're meant to take abuse. It's okay. Then the father in the movie says, and James Caan is amazing in the movie. He says, that's arrogance. When you hold people to a different standard than you hold yourself, you are saying that you are better than them. You have to teach people your standard. You have to show them how it's done. If you don't do those things that people do to you, then you need to do what you got to do to show them that it's not acceptable. And when he said that in the movie, I literally had catharsis in the traditional sense of the word. because it because up to that time I was thinking, oh my gosh, now I'm this new person who's doing these things. Is it justified? And after hearing that, it's like, yeah, it would be arrogant not um, to stand up for your beliefs and your ethics. It would be crazy not to. And if in so doing it means tearing down structures, then or shaking them up, you're going to have to do that. Because at the end of the day, you do it out of love. As Jane Fonda says, the revolution is born out of love. The blood of revolution, in this case, the mental blood, because violence is abhorrent. But I mean, the social destruction, like the same that the Me Too movement brought about, the societal destruction and the image of Hollywood being tarnished like that, is a little price to pay for getting people into a safer environment. And that's okay. It's necessary. And I did the same thing when it happened to me. And when I saw James Caan say that to Nicole Kidman, and then she thinks about it and she says, do the kids first and make the mother watch. That line, do the kids and you know Nicole Kidman and her soft voice. So I really want to interview the sound guy who does Nicole Kidman's movies. How do you do it? Do they ADR her sound? I don't know. Eyes Wide Shut is something else. That was the third movie I did. But she says it in her whisper voice. Do the kids first and make the mother watch. Do the kids first and make the mother watch. Do the kids first and make the mother watch. Yeah, I felt that one. The satisfaction in her voice, I totally could relate to that. And that's what I'm saying with these things on acting, is that finding those moments in your life that you can apply and transfer to a scene is important. And Lars von Trier is a hectic director. Like a lot of people say, how he challenges his actors in a very strange way. And I would love that kind of challenge. But more than that, I know I could play a Lars von Trier character because I know his work and I know where he's coming from with his work, and how his method of storytelling focuses on the message. And so it's very clear what he's trying to say. That everyone's voice is worthy and everyone deserves respect, no matter what. Um, and that abuse will be met with a reckoning. And think about that before you do the abusing. Because it's always fun when you're abusing, I imagine, thinking about what those people were thinking when they were doing what they were doing to me. Um, they must have got some kind of pleasure out of it. What that pleasure was, I'll never know. And I guess that's what separates me from them, is that I'll never be able to relate to that kind of hellish existence they must have been and might still be going through. But in a meta narrative of a world we live in where good wins over evil, I don't have to worry about knowing how evil operates. And that's the trick that actors need to remember. When you're playing a villain, you don't have to become one in order to play one. Instead, fight for what's right and become a villain to the villains. Because the enemy of the enemy is my friend, right? So if you're fighting for what's right, you'll be a villain to the establishment, which is a better villain and a necessary villain, as Christopher Nolan told us in The Dark Knight. It's a necessary villain to have because it brings about necessary change. But when you become a villain, if you think you need to become a villain in order to play a villain, then that's crazy, because now you're bringing in innocent people and hurting them for no reason. But you always remember that as the actor, you need to protect yourself. And I think that's the reason why Lars von Trier, I got an A on that paper, by the way, but I think that's the reason why acting with him is, he uses actors who can act. Because where he needs you to go in his movies, like I went to watch at the film festival on the cinema, Antichrist, and it was hectic, and I went with my mom, and we watched the whole thing, and it was insane what he was showing. But I sampled a bit of that movie in one of my songs, because I totally understand what he means in that movie. It is a horror movie, but not in the traditional sense. It's a horror movie in the terms of nature is horror. And when you've been through a kind of abuse and trauma like I have, and many others have, you start to question human nature. And how come, in order for things to grow, things have to die? Why is it that in your garden, I love, on a side note, I love Alain Delon, the French actor, and there's this famous picture of him doing this. So that was for Alain Delon. So, going back to on the Late Flight Show, we look at our notes. Lars von Trier uses real actors, because in his movies he needs you to go to places that only people who've gone to trauma would understand, but in a safe way. And watching Antichrist, I understand that theme, that human nature is a double-edged sword. In order for things to grow, something has to die. We use compost to make our food. Now that tells us that death is life. And when you look at the history or mythology of Pluto, it's about the same thing. Pluto takes Persephone into the underworld. He takes life with him. And people forget that Persephone wasn't taken, she went by will. Why do we say that? Because she knew that if she ate anything in the underworld, she would be trapped there. But she did it anyway, willingly. Why? She wanted to escape from being under the thumb of her mother. Ceres. She wanted to be independent. She wanted to be the queen in her own right. So she went to the underworld. And the result of that, for her to have her freedom, we have to suffer 6 months of without, life on earth, without the nourishment that Persephone brings according to Greek mythology. So Lars von Trier deals with themes like that in order for you to find empowerment sometimes you have to make a sacrifice that has bad effects for other people, but it's not your problem. And in Antichrist, it was that whole interplay of nature. Is nature the devil? Is nature evil because it births us and then it kills us, like in some kind of sick game? And in the clip that I used in one of my songs, called Beautiful People, which is actually a song about Eyes Wide Shut. I use a lot of imagery of Tom Cruise movies like Eyes Wide Shut, Vanilla Sky. And I use the quote when the acorns are falling on the roof, and Willem Dafoe is sitting with Charlotte Gainsbourg, and they're talking about you think something, 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 not the other way around or something. But his Lars von Trier as a director, his work speaks to the inner psyche of people who've had to see the ugly side of life, and that is not represented in normal mainstream media, in anything other than horror movies, normal run-of-the-mill chainsaw horror movies. That's the only psychological representation we get in mainstream media. We get, like in Nightmare on Elm Street, sexual abuse is the main theme, and Freddy Krueger is the embodiment of how sexual abuse haunts you as you get older. And I'm only getting this now because it happened to me when I was a teenager, but I have seen my Freddy Krueger, and he does exist, and he tries to come to the surface and chase you in your dreams. Um, and you tell yourself in the beginning, oh no, it's not real, it didn't happen, it's not real. But you end up like those characters. And, I think as an actor, you can choose. You can be a Nancy, like in that movie, and try to get to the bottom of it. And that's what actors do. They use trauma as a tool to get to the bottom of human nature. And what better place to study human nature and express it than acting, cinema? So, or you could be like Johnny Depp in that movie and not believe in it or not care, and then he ends up dead, eaten in the bed. Or you can be the promiscuous girl in the movie, she dies first. So, Lars von Trier brings us more realistic depictions though, because sometimes we don't die, we have to live. And how do we live? Nicole Kidman is basically ravaged in that movie. It's horrible what they do to her, chained. And they all know what's going on and they do nothing about it to help her. I know what that feels like. And she still wants to let them go. I know what that feels like. Like, no, it's fine. I guess I deserved it then. It's my fault. And then, no, Daddy says, show them. And that's true, because someone has to fight for what's right. Why not you? And if how you do it is seen as being a villain, then good, be a villain to the devil. You want to be the devil's villain, good, excellent. And be Charlie's angel. So, thank you, Lars von Trier, for the wonderful movies, and for the awesome actors, and for the film noir on the late flight show.